Welcome to Full and Share Theology. We're your hosts, Justin Mercier and Bruce Pagano, and this is Theology for Everyone. Welcome back to Full and Share Theology. I'm Justin Mercier here with Bruce Pagano, and today we're going to be diving into part 2 and chapter 4 of the book 3 Commands, written by ours truly, Bruce Pagano. Bruce, how you doing?
I'm good. We're recording these back to back because I'm going to be out of town.
Yeah.
So I don't have a lot of... I don't know how this last week was.
Yeah, right.
Well, we're in Wisconsin right now.
Yeah, that's right.
I'm not really in Wisconsin, but that's where we're going. We're going to Wisconsin, so...
Yeah, now tell me, are you going to be getting and bringing me back some cheese?
I'm going to be getting some cheese, and I can bring you back some cheese.
All right,
Although I don't like... Do cheese curds keep? Because that's the thing in Wisconsin, right? Beer and cheese curds.
Yeah, maybe.
If they keep, I'll bring it back.
That or if your kids end up eating them on the way or something. That's okay. As long as you think about me while you're eating cheese. But no, that's awesome. And this is what's the special occasion for going to Wisconsin?
Nothing in general. So my wife Sarah's brother, we went 4 years ago now. He got married and they have a baby, 10-month-old. But he's 10 months old now, so it's not like they just had the baby and we're like, oh, we're going out to... No, it's been 10 months and she's never met her nephew, and it's her first nephew. Yeah. So it's she has 2 younger brothers, and this is the first... She's the only one with 2 kids in the entire family. Wow. And so
this is a big deal.
Yeah, it's a big deal. Yeah. We're going to go pick up her mom in South Dakota and then drive. We're driving 23 hours.
Yeah. With how many kids?
Awesome. Just 2.
2 kids.
But the age difference is significant and important.
Yeah.
In that, because one's 12.
Yeah.
Actually, we're recording on the 14th today.
Yeah.
No, yesterday was the 14th.
Yesterday was the 14th. Yeah.
He turned 12 yesterday, and the other one's 5, and it's a boy and a girl. And so his hobby when they're around each other is antagonizing her, and her hobby when they're around is complaining about him not doing things that she wants him to do. So
sure, that siblings,
23 hours. But we'll have grandma in the car too, so that's
the equalizer.
Matters. Yeah,
that's the equalizer.
Yeah,
grandma.
And she's pretty on it. Like stop it, everybody.
Yeah.
So
when grandma speaks up, everyone listens. Yeah.
So
yeah, well, very good. It's I really don't. I guess for us, we really don't have much coming up, as that essentially. But yeah, like we were kind of talking about, we celebrated our sixth year of being married, and and we're just it's just been awesome, and so we're just still working away and doing whatever the next kind of thing is. Now that we're on summer break, a lot of people are not doing groups or anything like that right now, so our time is a little freed up, so we're gonna on our pool at our apartment complex just opened up, and
ours opened up a couple weeks ago.
Yep, exactly. So we're gonna be doing lots of swimming and all that kind of stuff. So speaking of kids and that sort of thing, I did have another good dad joke for you.
Hit it.
Well, this is more of like a one-liner, and that is, I used to hate facial hair, but then it grew on me. Which recently I just chopped all my facial hair off.
You did?
Yeah. Well, and the reason is mainly because the purpose of growing out my hair and my beard and all that kind of stuff was because I didn't have to face customers anymore at work, because I'm working from home now.
Yeah.
And then once the church was reopening up, my wife was like, I love you enough to tell you that you need to shave your giant beard off, because we have to actually see people now. And I'm like, okay. So, she's just looking out for me. Right. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Yeah, but anyway, and
my wife's kind of the same way though.
Like
she's just like, oh, you're gonna grow your beard out? That's ridiculous, for one.
Yeah.
And I'm like, routinely, every once in a while I'll be like, no, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And then I'll get to that awkward beard phase where it just kind of sticks out, and I can't do it. So.
Yep.
So she wins kind of just by default.
Yeah.
Even though she's just like, stop it.
Yeah.
When I was in the military, and I didn't have any facial hair.
Right.
I had a mustache, but I had friends that loved me enough to say, hey, if you ever want to get remarried, shave your mustache.
Yeah.
And so I did, and then Mustache March or No Shave November.
Oh yeah.
So in the military, Mustache March is this big thing.
Yeah.
And she was like, I don't know if I can say this. I think I can say this, but she was like, hey, you know that Mustache March is always followed by Abstinence April.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, good point.
And you're like, okay.
Yep, I will not grow a mustache. Right.
Yeah, exactly. That's awesome. Yeah, I tried to have a good mustache, but then it just comes off really weird.
Yeah.
And then you put the aviators and the trench coat and the whole thing together, it just doesn't
And
work.
then people run away from you.
I know, yeah.
Cops get
Plus,
involved.
my face hair is red, and red mustaches are just not real, like, predominant.
No, yeah. No, I get that.
Hey, one of the cool things I just wanted to mention, too, is that we had just a comment from our Instagram, Full and Share Theology Instagram, Secret Blue Butterfly. Apparently a lot of people know who, I mean, they have like 8,000 followers or whatever, but they just wanted to thank us for just bringing in grace and love and all that kind of stuff. So we appreciate that comment.
Cool.
And so just know that, if anyone else is following the Instagram, always feel free to comment, drop a line, or tell us where you're from and that sort of thing. I know a couple episodes ago we talked about our listeners, which, by the way, Lincoln City, Oregon, I don't know who's there, but they stepped up. They have like 9 people listening.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
So
I haven't even looked.
whoever's in Lincoln City, just want to thank you for listening to us. And we'll have to go out to Lincoln City one of these times.
Do a live event with 7
Seriously,
people.
wouldn't that be great?
People.
Yeah. Tell you what, man. But we'll get some like crab, like eat some crabs and go fishing or whatever.
Is that a thing out there?
I mean, yeah. I mean, our friend Daniel, who's he just said when he went to the Oregon coast there to Lincoln City. He said they were putting crab pots in the water and.
Oh, that's right. He did say that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Oh yeah. So I'm telling you, we'll have to go crabbing, man.
Sweet.
Yeah. I wanted to make sure I said that properly. I didn't want to say, let's go get crabs, because that'd be like,
don't get crabs.
Don't get crabs, no. I said, let's go fish for crabs. He goes, go eat them.
Yeah.
Well, very good. Well, so we're getting into this book. We're in part 2 here.
That's crazy.
Who do you love? And we are getting inside this, and I liked the very end of this kind of introduction to part 2. Learning to obey Jesus' new command to love each other naturally leads to experiencing the joy of the greatest command to love God with all that we are, and in turn equips us to love our neighbor as ourselves.
Right, and so that's the in academia would be the thesis.
Okay.
Like that's the whole crux of the book, and I think kind of this part.
Yeah.
And I think I mentioned this before, but like we're told pretty routinely that so many churches have the on the church wall or the motto love God and love others, or love God and love people, and and it's typically based off of that question. Hey, Jesus, what are the 2 greatest commands? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And people miss that. Even though Jesus said that those were the greatest commands, he was talking about the old covenant.
Yeah.
He was talking about the greatest commands of the old covenant. Yeah. And then he brings his disciples aside and he's like, look, I didn't come to abolish the law. I came to fulfill that.
Yeah.
I came to fulfill the requirements of the law and your ability to experience those things in the law.
Yeah. To
love your God and love your neighbor. And in this, I give you this new command.
Yeah.
And a new covenant.
Yeah.
And it's in the new covenant that, in participating in the new covenant, that you get to experience the fullness of the old covenant. Like you get to experience the old covenant fulfilled.
Yeah.
So that,
in
living in the new covenant, you get to experience what it means to love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. And you get to experience and participate in loving your neighbor as yourself.
Yeah.
So those churches that post that, not far off, but we're missing, and it's the thing that Gaylord Enns, who wrote a book called Love Revolution, calls it the forgotten. I think he calls it.
I think you mentioned it in there, yeah.
Anyway, he calls it the forgotten or the displaced or whatever. Basically, he says not only have we missed it, but we've forgotten it. Like we've kind of cast it aside, and so we'll quote, "Love Lord God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength."
Yeah.
Love your neighbor as yourself, but we miss love each other.
Yeah.
And that Jesus said, I'm going to give you this new command. So that's and that's the thesis, is that learning to obey that command opens up the ability to experience and fulfill and participate in that fulfillment of the other that Jesus said were the greatest commands of the Old Covenant. So
yeah, absolutely. And I'll be remembering this because tomorrow I'm supposed to be helping one of our friends. He's getting new carpet in his house. They're about to have a baby here. And he asked me to help him move a piano. So I'll be remembering this. Like as I'm lifting this giant piano.
Like, I love my neighbor.
Yeah. But, very good. And so, so we're going into, we're getting into the book here. I know we kind of got a basic outline, but I do like, just real quickly on page 68, just about this, love your neighbor as yourself, is actually not, the words itself is not like a new line. This was something that was mentioned in Leviticus 19:18, which I appreciated. Obviously, we kind of get more into that part of it later on in this chapter, but what I liked is that it says, it just reiterates the sentiment of when we're talking about a foreigner in Israel, the word neighbor as a pastor can mean a couple different things, and I kind of appreciated that just because there was this kind of if there's this foreigner among you, how you're supposed to treat that foreigner among you and that sort of thing in the Old Testament. And
right.
I appreciated that.
Thanks. And for me, and I share this in the beginning of that, I had this idea of what God had been speaking to me, and I shared, I have this friend that lives in Boise, and I love him to death. He's a great guy, and unfortunately we only see each other a few times a year because Boise's so far away from but just schedules and stuff. Every once in a while we'll,
it's like a 25-minute drive.
Go have a thank you. I wanted to make it sound like we lived hours away from each other.
People in Texas would be so mad right now because Texas is like, we drove 4 hours to get to you. I'm just joking.
No. But when we were moving here, I was like, hey, the real estate agent, when we were looking at houses, was like, well, where do you plan on working? I was downtown Boise.
Yeah.
And she was like, then you don't want to live out in Nampa. That's like a 25 minutes to downtown Boise.
Yeah.
And I live in D.C. area. If I leave at the wrong time, it's a 2-hour drive to work.
Oh, absolutely.
Or home. So I think I'll be all right. But now living here, I'm like,
oh yeah.
Thank God I don't live in downtown or work in downtown Boise because that 25-minute drive is ridiculous. And actually, with all the traffic coming, it turns into a 45-minute drive, which sounds ridiculous to anybody that lives anywhere with traffic. Yeah. But for us, it's like, why do I have to drive 12 minutes to the highway? Yeah. This is crazy.
Yeah. Oh no, it isn't. No, for my wedding, for our wedding, one of my best friends, Dave, who lives in San Antonio, Texas, he came to Boise for our wedding, and I remember, so in college when he used to live here, he was basically late to everything, or pretty close to on time, maybe a couple minutes late. But now he's been doing medical school, just graduated as a doctor now, which is amazing. I'm not gonna call him Dr. Dave though. I might. That's kind of funny.
Just as a
yeah. But anyway, when he was for my wedding, he was 45 minutes early to everything, and he's like, well, in Texas you have to leave 2 hours early.
Right. And I lived in San Antonio, and it imagine a brick of top ramen. Yeah. If you just crushed it up and threw it onto a map. Yeah. And you're like, oh, that would be a good road system. That's San Antonio. Yeah, exactly. I lived there for 5 years, and I loved living in Texas. Loved it. Yeah. The food. There's a reason why San Antonio was rated the fattest city 4 years in a row. Oh yeah. The food's amazing. Oh yeah. The road system there it's a wonder that anybody gets to food.
Yeah. How do you guys get to the magical food? Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, my friend who lives in Boise, all that way away.
So yeah.
We were out one night, and I was telling him about the book, and I was kind of restarting a few years ago to rewrite or to write some stuff, finish it up, and I was telling him the idea, and he was like, "Well, you know, the new command's not new," and I was like,
yeah, you said that.
Except that Jesus said it was new.
Yeah.
And that was my argument.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I really had to kind of do some research into that, which I would have anyway, but I hadn't at that point, so I wasn't prepared. And I was like, Jesus said.
Yeah.
So I win this argument.
Yeah, it's in red letters, I know.
Yeah. And really it comes down to that neighbor bit there where the new command legitimately was a new command, and his argument was, yeah, but it existed all the time because they were supposed to love their fellow Jew. And neighbor did mean typically, like, it had a couple different meanings, a few different meanings, but the one that was most generally used was either the foreigner coming into the land, or somebody that you had a close affinity to. So it didn't apply to another Jew that might have, that you might pass and that you really didn't know.
Yeah.
You just knew they lived there, and you didn't have any connection to them, really.
Yeah.
You weren't expected to love them. You were expected to treat them well because a lot of the laws pertaining to relationships between Jewish people, Israelites, had to do with not charging them interest and helping their oxen out of a hole and how to treat each other. But that's not love. Treating each other a specific way is not love.
Right.
So love your neighbor was if you have an affinity for or a connection to this person, then you love them.
Right.
The foreigner, love them. Like, you don't plow your field, or you don't harvest your field all the way to the edge. Leave it. Anyway, so for me that was a big deal, like, just seeing that distinction, because there's a reason Jesus came and said, "Hey, I have this new command," because clearly love your neighbor had been misconstrued to not include the Pharisees loving someone who was a low class that didn't know the law, that was unclean.
Yeah.
There wasn't a need. They would say those prayers and they would recite those prayers and they knew the law.
Yeah.
But there wasn't a practical outworking of that. And they didn't feel like they had to even. Until Jesus comes along and he's like, "Hey, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength." You guys say that one routinely. The other one, though, that you guys say and miss is love your neighbor as yourself. Yeah. And then he takes his disciples aside and says, with you guys, love each other. The way I've loved you, love each other. That's my new command that I give you. Yeah. Among and later, among you it'll be different when it comes to leadership. And among you will serve each other. And
No, I appreciate that. And that's, I'll tell you, I mean, we're actually, if we think about it that way, it's like, we're actually blessed because the thing is that the disciples, they thought, oh, like, the king is here. He's ready to take over Rome. Like, he's ready to be the king here. And when he's like, no, that's not why I'm here. Here's why I'm here. I'm sure at that point they were probably ticked. Like, what? Like, we have Roman oppression. Like, what are you talking about? But now here we are, 2,000 and whatever years later, after Jesus' ministry, and it's like we still get to live out this amazing command to love one another well and love our neighbor, and to do it absolutely the best we can to get this right. And so I really appreciated that. What I appreciated too, this is on page 69, is this thought of my yoke is easy, my burden is light, talking about how there's people who go, well, actually Jesus had all these other commands and that sort of thing, and it's like, if that were true, that would not make that statement true. Right.
And like I say it in here, but I found one guy that had compiled a list of 1,050 commands.
That's right. I saw that.
So you're telling me just to be clear,
Yeah.
you're telling me that Jesus came and was like, hey, this 613 laws that you currently have, not enough.
Yeah. Here's
I'm
400
gonna
more.
like, I'm going to add 400 more.
Yeah.
And I, that doesn't jive. Like even, I think the lowest I found was 49.
Yeah.
But even that doesn't jive with my yoke is easy and light. My burden is light. Like he, I said, but the word easy means manageable, as in pleasant and useful in a good way. The word light in this context means light in weight and not heavy, which is an indication that you can carry it for a long time.
And and we're talking about yoke. Like a yoke is, well, I understand this is something that goes over your neck, over your shoulders, and you typically carry water or whatever with it, or
and the oxen would have used
oxen.
it to pull carts or carry or whatever. And
that's
I
what
think,
the yoke means.
Right.
My yoke is easy. Yeah.
And I think that what he's getting at is, hey, the thing that I'm going to place on you, the expectation that I'm going to place on you is that you love each other.
Yeah.
And it's easy. Yeah. It's simple. It's not burdensome. Now, it isn't always. You're not always going to understand it.
Yeah.
As far as you're concerned, other people may not do it well.
Yeah.
But I don't expect a lot from you. I don't expect 1,000 different things from you. Yeah. But what I do expect is that you love each other. And in that, this transformation that will occur in which you view hate as murder, in which you view lust as adultery,
right? In
which you view the oppressed as people to break the chains and set the oppressor on the run, right? And it's based out of that ministry, that thing that I'm giving you, that binds you together, that joins you as one, that allows you to experience the Father and me and Holy Spirit as one, and moves you towards these things that become natural, outworking fruit, if you will, of this thing that you're working toward obeying. Yeah. If that makes sense.
No, I appreciate that. And that's kind of like the, I think we've referred to it a couple times, is like when love is our base of how we go, that we walk day to day, and the way that we treat each other, and the way that we, as believers especially together, it's like there are all these, joy, peace, and kindness and gentleness, where there is no law against that. It's like then once you're operating in this place of loving one another, God's command here, then it's like you're not necessarily thinking like, oh, I've got to worry about murder, because if you're operating in this love, you're operating in this loving one another. You're not like, man, I hope I don't slip up on murder today. Like, like
I hope I don't accidentally murder somebody.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing is like when you're operating.
It really does affect the way that you view people. Like the lens that you see people through becomes different. And I think it's important to mention that, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong. Yeah. But I looked a lot. And I could only find one instance that Jesus says, this is my command. Mm. And it was with this command. Yeah. So if we're talking about the command of Jesus, he doesn't take hold of all these other things. Mm. He'll say, like, you've heard it said, but I say to you, blah, blah, blah. That's him expanding on a law that already exists, a command that already exists. That's his explanation of like, you're so caught up on adultery, but you're looking at women as objects and lusting after them. That's adultery. It's the same thing. It's a heart issue. So he's expanding the kind of this definition. Yeah. This is the only time he says, hey, here's my command. Yeah. And uses the word command as in, you have to do this. Right. If you submit to me as king, if you identify me as king, if you confess me as king, and you are a citizen of my kingdom, the only law I have is love one another. Yeah. Believe in me,
Yeah.
Love one another.
Yeah.
Because out of that springs forth all this other stuff.
Right.
And like you said, you don't have to think, man, am I going to murder someone today? Like,
Yeah.
Don't murder
Yeah.
someone, don't murder someone, don't murder someone, don't murder.
Yeah.
Like you're driving down the road and you're like,
Yeah.
if this guy cuts me off, I might, like sideswipe him and then get out and beat the...
Yeah, yeah.
You don't have to worry about that because...
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
not that you do it perfect.
No. Yeah. No. Yeah. But, and that's so, I appreciate that because it's kind of like, I think we could even say that that kind of almost still happens today where it's like, we will and by we, I mean like society, social media, the media and that sort of thing, is that they will go like, oh really, you want to stand behind this cause? Well, look at all of the looting and the burning down and blah, blah, blah. And we're like, why are you focusing on that? We need to focus on the issue. Like,
right.
This is the issue. And they go, well, don't focus on look at all the looting and the people stealing the stuff from Target. It's like, no, you're missing the point. It's like, and that's kind of what you're saying is like, they're like, yeah, but what about adultery? It's like, yeah, but you're also, like, when they're trying to stone this woman, like, yeah, but also, what about you're doing this? Well, and they're like, well, don't worry about us. We want to know about this woman. Right. And it's like, no, this is a her issue. Like, right. And so.
Yeah, no, that's a perfect example. Like, right on, yeah.
And I think my wife even said today, they're like, especially what we're going through now as a society with racial inequality and systemic racism and that sort of thing, it will fade away because it's not popular anymore to the social society. Right. And we've got to be the ones that go, no, this is still an issue and we need to fight for the people.
We had group on Friday. Yeah. We had a great discussion.
Yeah. Yeah.
After we left, though, I was talking to someone else, and I had mentioned to someone else, and I thought, what if, like, I got that there were people in the church that, during abolition times, and when they were trying to undo slavery and make it illegal, and that there were people in the church that used the Bible to qualify and justify owning people.
And this is the 1800s.
Yeah. But there were also people in the church that were like on the front end of the abolition movement, and this is not okay. Yeah. There were people in the church during the civil rights movement that were forefront in the civil rights movement, and they were like, this is not okay. And so I think the question I asked was, I wonder what would have happened if the church would not have been involved in the abolition movement or the civil rights movement. Yeah. And the opportunity that we have right now to be this, to be love, and be involved in a process and a situation and a moment in history where people are saying, but oppression is real and I'm hurt. Right. And that our response as a church gets to be, yep, and I'm sorry, and we're here, and let's move forward to figure out how not to hurt you and to free you from oppression and set the oppressor on the run.
You're right.
And it may not be a specific person, but a system. Yeah. Set the system on the run. Like, our job is to break the chains of the oppressed and set the oppressor on the run. Yeah. And this is it. And it's this. It's realizing, our command is to love. Yeah. Yeah. And spoiler alert, I end the book with, there's only one command. In all three of the commands that Jesus talks about, the first one and the second one, love the Lord your God, love your neighbor as yourself. And then when he gives his new command, love each other. Yeah. It's all love. Right. And why? Yeah. Because God is love. God. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah. So.
No, I appreciate that because it's so. I think this is just so important. Because we've got to get this down. Like as as believers, we've got to get this down. It's like, we had talked about previously, like, we idolatrize this love, everything's good, but it's like, no, like once we understand who is love and that He lives in us and we can operate from that, then we start changing the world.
Absolutely.
And so I just hope that we don't just ride the wave of it's popular to this and that because of whatever. It's like, because I appreciated like you and your wife still on social media or whatever will still post things about the oppression and about the systemic racism, because there's a lot of people they're just like, cool, I did my post, I'm good, everyone's slowing down, and it's like, I appreciate it.
No, and thanks for saying that, man. But I also understand too that the social media thing's useless if it's just the social media thing. So like we're even in the process of trying to figure out, because my wife's going to midwifery school, and historically there's been this gross imbalance of white midwives and midwives of color. And midwifery started with slaves, black women birthing their own babies, but also the babies of the people that own them. And so midwifery started in America, was largely an African American people of color thing. And it's been kind of, I think one of our friends who's a black woman said that it's been robbed from them and made very difficult. And so, we're trying to figure out, okay, so in that space, what does it look like for us to actually be active and to help change that? And, for us, finances are a roadblock to women, women of color going to midwifery school, but also childcare and also a place to stay. So Boise has Boise. I live here, so I have to say it right. But has a midwifery school, and for women to come here, that means that they have to figure out housing. We have a spare room. So in the next year, if that means that you and I have to find a different place to record, then we find a different place to record so that someone can stay in this room. And anyway, so things like that. So and that's built out of, well, I'm called to love. And how can that, it doesn't, if it's a bumper sticker, it doesn't matter. I don't care how many times you say it. It doesn't matter if you're not doing it. And so how are you practically doing it? And for us, the gospel, King Jesus as King, is not this intangible macro thing. It's this very real micro thing, and we at least are constantly trying to figure out, what does that mean on a very practical, I live my life with Christ and other people level. So
exactly. And so and we're getting into this this is on page 70 here, is I appreciated when you had said, this is the I think this is what we were talking about, the church in general. It says, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and being a good person and baking him a cake on Sunday, and love him by not watching too much television or becoming obsessed with a particular hobby, and make sure you read your Bible and pray routinely. That sounds like the church. I mean, that sounds like the church that we grew up in.
And I think the point I was making is, wouldn't that be easy? Like if that was easy. If that was the thing, if that was the list, like here's how you love God. And it was this list of things that you do. I would just add eat cake also onto there. But But like, how easy would it be if it was just like, oh, that's all I have to do? Cool. And and so I appreciate that. And kind of going on this is that I like this
this saying, this is on 71, it says, unfortunately, some take that to mean that we love God by loving our neighbor. This view is not wrong per se, it's more backwards than anything, but it does create some problems. And I would love for you to expand on that a little bit, just because I love the fact that you're like, okay, we talk about like we love God by loving our neighbor, because that is plastered everywhere on the church walls. So what? Maybe to expand a little bit, what makes it backwards more than anything? What's the problem?
So keeping in mind that I'm writing this book to Christians. Yeah. I'm not writing this book to
non-believers.
I'm writing it to people that confess Christ.
Yeah.
And that have been sitting in church and have had it preached to them. The two greatest commands are love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. Love your neighbor as yourself. Mm-hmm. And that's not wrong. Like Jesus said that.
Yeah.
He said. But we miss, and what's not taught is he was talking about the old covenant. Mm. And then everything he did during his ministry led up to what point?
His death.
His death. Yeah. Crucifixion, right?
Yeah.
What happened the night before his death? That night.
Yeah.
Dinner, right?
Yeah,
his Passover meal.
Yeah.
And he offers the elements and says, gather, do this in remembrance of me.
Yeah.
Breaks the bread, passes it out, says, this is my body broken for you.
Yeah.
Takes the cup of wine.
Yeah. Which was totally controversial at the time, because you couldn't drink blood and eat your body.
Right.
Like,
and
that
so,
was like,
and I mean, so
Jesus,
controversial
what are you talking about?
That the Bible says it was a hard teaching and people left it, right? People are like, this is crazy. You're crazy.
Yeah.
But then he takes that wine and he passes it out and says, this is the new covenant in my blood, right?
Yeah.
So somehow, and you can, like, through history and whatever, somehow we've missed that the crux of this whole thing is new covenant.
Yeah.
New covenant.
Yeah.
It's a new commitment. It's a new promise between us and Christ, right?
Yeah.
But yet we still teach that the old covenant laws are the ones that we're bound to. Instead of, we're bound in the new covenant. And because of that, and Christ fulfilling the old covenant, we get to experience the fullness of the revelation and what comes out of the old covenant, right?
Yeah.
And so what's taught routinely is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And I think I've mentioned this, but when you get to a point where you're like, well, I don't know what that means to love God because I don't feel it.
Yeah.
Right?
All right.
Maybe it's loving my neighbor. Yeah. Because that's tangible and I can do that. I can do something. But then they don't love you back when you mow Mrs. Gentry's lawn.
Yeah.
Or, serve in the soup kitchen, or, they don't love you back, and you're like, is this what it is? Because if this is what it is, I'm not sure that I necessarily want this.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't, and I'm not saying that you should base everything on feelings, but like there's not this fullness in it, and I don't feel in a relationship. I feel kind of used.
Yeah.
And abused.
Yeah.
And it's not done on purpose, but so many churches that I've been a part of and in, it's, hey, get saved, then find a place to serve on Sunday morning, and then participate in our outreach projects.
Yeah.
And at some point you should join a group.
Yeah.
You end up really feeling used, and the truth is God's not a user. Like, I hate the term used by God. God, just use me. I just want to be used by God.
Yeah.
Except God's not a user.
Yeah.
He's an inviter.
Yeah, he's a giver, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he invites you to participate in the thing that he's already going to do.
Yeah, right.
He was already going to free the Israelites from Egypt. He heard their cry.
Yeah.
And was already going to free them from Egypt, from slavery.
Yeah.
And he invites Moses. Now, he's pretty direct, and he's pretty like, you're not getting out of this.
Yeah.
But he invites him into it.
Yeah.
And Moses accepts the invitation. He has excuses, but he accepts the invitation. And so God doesn't use us, but he invites us. And so when the message becomes, if you do these things, if you participate in these things, then you experience loving God and loving your neighbor. You get tired. Like, you get people that get tired and get cynical. But if the message is, hey, now that you're a Christian, I would love to see. I don't like everybody bow your heads and close your eyes. I'm going to say a prayer. If you said that prayer, raise your hands with heads eyes closed and heads bowed. Everybody. I would love it. Like, I love altar calls only because the courage it takes, the Holy Spirit prompting you to walk down. And that's courage. And to me, that's Holy Spirit. But I would love, hey, let's say this prayer together, because I want to see who gets saved. So after service, I can go up to him and be like, welcome. Come on Monday to our group. You know what I'm saying? Because your next step as a new Christian should be to find a community of people where you can take the emotion and the zeal and the newness of your relationship into and expend that energy in learning to be loved and love. Instead of expending that energy on the coffee bar at church on Sunday morning and the project, the outreach project. Do those, but do them with people that you've connected with and learned to love.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? Like, your opening doors on Sunday morning should be a result of, I love these people that I've come to know, and I want to open the door for them.
And I appreciate that, because, and this is not so much a dig at these kind of things, but one of the things I've seen multiple times over is a young, brand new Christian, or maybe they're 18 years old or 20 years old and that sort of thing, and then they go to a school of ministry or whatever, and it's like a 5-week long process,
or
and
a year. You know what I'm saying? Like sometimes it's a year.
Or and they just like cram the Bible, and then they go serve people in Mexico, and they go and then they go, all right, go back to your homes.
And it's not real, right?
And then they come back and they're like,
it's this false environment where they're so saturated with God. And then they're dumped into the real world. With who?
with broken people and sinners, and
by themselves.
Exactly. And I've just seen this time and time. And the thing is that they will get 100 youth kids or 100 young adults, and they'll do this program, and then like 90% of them are like, they don't go to church anymore, they don't do it anymore because they didn't feel it. And then when they got, and I'll reach out, hey, you did some like really cool stuff in Mexico when I was with you. Like, what happened? Like, now I see that you're doing whatever. And they're just like, oh yeah, I don't believe in that stuff anymore. And it's like, what happened? Well, I got home and like,
it's not real.
It's not real. And I'm like, and so that's the thing, is like, when we are like, come be part of our big thing. It's like, that's the big thing, is like, that might be a really great experience, and we would hope that like maybe you would, you just can't cram Jesus in, you know, and it's like about
proximity and time.
Exactly. That's what we talked about in the last podcast. And so it's like, those are sprints, but we have to understand that like loving God, or loving people and loving God and like trusting God and that sort of thing, it's like, it's a lifelong thing, and it's the tortoise in the hare. It's a tortoise thing. It's like, we know that at the end of the day, Jesus is coming back and he wins. But it's like, but that doesn't happen in 5 weeks.
Marriage.
Marriage.
I'm gonna keep coming.
Marriage is such a good,
So imagine if we approached marriage that way, and I'm only like, because this is my context, and the Bible talks about marriage as uses it as an example and metaphor. But imagine if for the first 5 weeks of our marriage, was just honeymoon, and we were immersed in each other, and we had someone teaching us that this is what marriage is, and blah blah blah, and then they were like, nothing else. They were like, now for the rest of your life, you're just in the real world. Okay, go. And you were like, a week? my wife and we eloped and we had a week honeymoon. Most people get a few days or whatever.
Yeah.
That's bad enough. Imagine a year of not real life.
Yeah.
Everything's taken care of. You raised money.
Yeah.
You just don't have
No
to do
bills,
real life.
no
bills.
nothing.
Then you get dumped into real life, and you're like, wait a second. What do you mean you don't make the bed?
Yeah.
Wait a second. What do you mean that you don't agree with me?
Yeah.
And your response to that was, "This is fake. We're just gonna end this." You know what I'm saying? Like, and maybe that's not a really good example, but if we treated it that way, it wouldn't be productive. But we tell people, like, you have to have marriage counseling, premarital counseling, and you have to read these books and prepare for it because, and even now more than ever, we're like, hey, you should give as much attention to your marriage as you do the wedding. Because your wedding's less important. Like, that's 4 hours versus 40 years or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so I just thought about that, and I was like, that's kind of how that's kind of how that is. And I like this is on. Let me see. Okay, so we're talking about on 72. So we're talking about this section says fulfilling the law.
Okay.
And it says that so this is from what Jesus is saying in Matthew 15. I did not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. Just talking about the law. Mm-hmm. Jesus revealing that God's original intention for the law, when He gave it to us through Moses, Paul tells us that it's a byproduct of the law, and that we could see our sin and where we fall short. But this was not God's original purpose for it. Unfortunately, this is what I was going to talk about. Unfortunately, many pastors, and you said yourself included, have not helped lessen the confusion that already exists about understanding the law and its place in the new covenant. Mm-hmm. Because of its confusion and difficulty when it comes to reading it. And typically, pastors shy away from teaching it through Scripture, like Romans 6:14. And it says, you are not under the law, but under grace. So, kind of tell us about, like, where do pastors get this wrong typically? That you are seeing.
So, like, I just think that it's hard to teach on the law. Yeah. The Old Testament, in and of itself, has a lot of things that seem a little bit contradictory to kind of some of the stuff that's happening in the New Testament. And I just think that kind of what we get wrong is because it's not easy to teach and because there's not this, and even me, I'm not an Old Testament scholar, I'm not a Old Covenant or scholar of the law, like I'm not a theologian, clearly. But I think like we lean on passages like 6:14 that says you're not under the law anymore, you're under grace. And we grab hold of that and we're like, oh, then we don't need to teach what that meant to have the law fulfilled. Like, it's easy to go into, they broke the law and the law required blood, so we get this, this Christology that involves the words escaping my thought right now, but this atonement Christology that's like, well, Jesus had to pay for our sins. Jesus had to pay for us breaking the law, like when the covenant was made between Abraham and God,
right?
And God walks through the halves of the bowls, and it's just like, hey, if you break this covenant, I'll receive this. So, we just leave it at that. Like, Jesus came to fulfill that. That Jesus came because we, and biblically, like, we deserve, all have sinned and fallen short, and the wages of sin is death, and that's all true. But we leave it at that and miss that it's not, like, he didn't come to fulfill it for nothing. He came to fulfill it that we might experience the fullness of it. Because if he just came to fulfill it and then do away with it, that's abolishment. That's like, I came to fulfill, like, I fulfilled the requirements of the law. Someone deserved to die. I'll do that. And now it's not there anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't exist.
Mm.
That's abolishment. Like, you don't have to worry about that. But I don't think that that's what's meant when he says, I came to fulfill it.
Right.
I think that in living in the new covenant, there is an opportunity to experience the fullness of, because it wouldn't matter, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself, don't matter if we have nothing to do with the old covenant, because that was the old covenant.
Yeah.
And we live in the new covenant.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're not connected in any way, if they don't intertwine somehow,
Yeah.
then we don't have to worry about those two commands. But we lament over those. I wouldn't even say we lament over. We do not lament, but we try and figure out what that means, and we have sermons upon sermons upon sermons about loving God and loving your neighbor.
Yeah.
And I would be hard pressed to think of a sermon that talked about loving each other.
Yeah.
The new covenant, and so I just think that his fulfillment of the law was not for us to ignore it. That his implementation of the new covenant was an extension of the fulfillment of the law for us to experience its fullness.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's in the way that I've read the Old Testament, or where I am reading the Old Testament, is that everything that you're reading in this Old Testament is it's about Jesus.
Yep.
And that's the thing is, like, and so we actually talked about this, is like the book of Numbers, for instance. Like, we've talked about the book of Numbers, and it's like, people, like, someone who challenged me about it said, I don't get the book of Numbers. I don't care about all these numbers and the soldiers and the blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And I'm like, but do you understand that, like, God told Moses to number the people, and then and by people, he numbered the soldiers, the able-bodied 20-year-old soldiers. Where David also numbered his soldiers in his day, and God was angered by it, because David was trying to say, look how powerful I am,
right.
Look at all the people I have, where God ordained, said, Moses, I want you to number the people. And what was significant about it is that at the end of the story, the 40 years that they were in the wilderness, the multiple battles they fought, all that kind of stuff, it was like only 1,800 of the 600,000 soldiers. Like, only 1,800 was at last 40 years later. Right. After all the, so like there's a point to the Old Testament, and that's just it's an insight to be like it's all pointing to Jesus and the reason why we need Jesus. Right. We need him because we can't do it on our own. Every time we try to do it on our own, we fail miserably. Right. I mean, we're literally like, they're like, we were in captivity. Lord, thank you so much for rescuing us. And then we go in the wilderness, and they're like, oh, I wish I was back in slavery. Right. And it's like, and you
could have died with a full belly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's kind of like, at our human nature is that we continue to lose sight of the point. And the point is, Jesus is not one of the points. He's the only point. Right. That's the deal. And so I appreciate that, because we should be teaching on the Old Testament. There's so much like amazing truth, and we would look at it from that mindset. It all points to Jesus. I mean, it's like there's some amazing truths in the Old Testament that we can really take away.
I think I mentioned it a few chapters ago, but Phil Vischer is the creator of VeggieTales.
Yeah.
Holy Post podcast.
Yeah.
Which is an awesome podcast. But he calls it Old Testament living. And his thing is like, when we try to reside, like the Old Testament is meant to be viewed through the lens of Christ.
Yeah.
And when we try to like grab Old Testament apart from Jesus, and just live that, we're doing something that we weren't meant to do.
Yeah.
But when we take Christ and filter the Old Testament through Christ and look at the Old Testament through the lens of Christ, and we're like, oh, this all points back to him, and this is what this is useful for, and then moving forward, this is what this is useful for.
Yeah.
And so he just makes that kind of distinction where it's like,
Yeah, and many times in the New Testament, Paul and other writers, a lot of times the way that they connected with the people is be like, don't you remember the law of Moses? And then it was like, or don't you remember this that happened in the Old Testament with the Israelites? And then they use that as a launching point.
Right.
And it's like there are still religions out there that you actually can say, yeah, you've been learning about this Old Testament,
right.
and then that's a launching point to be like, here's how we the conversation. So
yeah, for sure.
And then let's see here. So
I think just kind of as we kind of move into wrapping it up, there's the difference between the Old Covenant cycle and the New Covenant cycle.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I wanted to definitely touch base on that. So a lot shorter, a lot simpler.
Significantly shorter, right? And I think that's where, like, in the Old Covenant, there was like grief and despair and all this stuff that complicated the whole cycle, the cycle as a whole.
Yeah. Here we go. This is on. So page 35 shows you the Old Covenant cycle. Page 75 and 76 talk about the New Covenant.
And it
much smaller circle.
It all starts with God's love.
Yes.
Right? And then moves into this place of belief and being gathered together so that you might experience the new command and practice the new command, so that you can move into what it means to love God and experience that, and then move into loving, equipped to love your neighbor, and then be a witness for him. And then it wraps up with God's love, right? And so the light yoke that we talked about earlier, the easier thing that we talked about earlier, is this. Like, it's this 3 parts thing that involves love. And one moves you towards and equips you for the other. And that's just it. Like, and really, like, the belief in the gathered and the witness for him, not that those are inconsequential, but they probably could have been left out. And I think, the image on the front cover there, that little triangle there, is that circle with those things left out, with the idea that, one moves you towards the other, equips you for the third, and then moves you back into community with Christ. So
well, and I appreciate that, because in the Old Covenant cycle, it definitely, it's talking about, like, separation, rejection, guilt, despair. Like, there's, like, all these things where, when you look at this New Covenant cycle, it's like...
And in Christ, there's no condemnation for those who are in Christ, right?
Yeah.
And so all that stuff in the Old Covenant is condemnation.
Like,
all that stuff in the Old Covenant is separation and guilt and condemnation. And in Christ, that doesn't exist.
Right. But and the church for the longest time has been continually teaching that, like, if you don't do these things, you're gonna see rejection, you're gonna see guilt, you're gonna see, and it's like, well, hold up, like, I have Christ now. Right. Why are you saying that I'm gonna have those things if I don't?
And not that you don't feel guilty for things that you do, or
you're still human. Like,
you're still human. And you're still gonna wrestle with it. You're still gonna do stupid things. We do stupid things.
Yeah.
But that. In Christ, he doesn't condemn you. You are the woman caught in adultery, thrown before him, and him saying, "Neither do I condemn you.
Yeah,
go and sin no more." And it's in community and connection with other Christians that you get to experience going and sinning no more.
Yeah,
and so so just that, and
Yeah, and it kind of this chapter ends with, and we've talked about this a few times, about this 2 roads from, this is John Lynch's book, The Cure, and I think he's probably said it other places as well, but
he like, you can go on YouTube and Google John Lynch 2 Roads, and he's got sermons that he's preached about it, and there's this great video that's really edited and him sitting in front of a campfire.
Oh, the campfire one is my favorite one. It's like only 4.5 minutes. Yeah. But literally, it, like, when you listen to it,
it's a great video.
When you listen to it, you're like, oh, like, once you recognize that, like, you've been in this place where you've been told you've got to wear a mask, you've got to try to please God.
Don't tell me what's going on.
Don't tell me what's going on. Just work on your sin and all kind of stuff. And when you realize that, you're like, oh my gosh, that's been my church experience. And then you realize that it's like, no, like you're okay to take off. It's okay to take off the mask.
Yeah.
What you've probably walked through, someone's probably walked through something even worse. So you're actually not that special. Like, you can just come and just relax and know that like you're still loved and that sort of thing. And I that's a great video to go check out if you haven't go check out. And it just basically, and I want you to learn to let other people love you with all your stuff. And it will free you you'll feel loved like crazy because you have experienced being loved. And that is the first step to that spiritual maturity.
Right. And I think like the ability, the realization that you're loved is the thing that frees you to love.
Yeah.
Like he says, like crazy.
Yeah.
Because you've been loved.
Yeah.
And that is the whole thing of the new command.
Yeah.
I think it was less, because I've experienced it, I think it was less about Jesus saying, hey, you need to become a part of a group of people that, and your job in that is to love them well. I think it was more about come and be a part of this group, this community, this body, and experience being loved.
Yeah.
And in doing so, you'll be free to love like crazy. You'll be free to love the way that you've experienced being loved.
Yeah.
And it completes the whole of the command.
Yeah.
Because the commands love each other. It's not love others. It's love each other. And so, if we're honest, we don't know what that means. We don't know what it means to love other people until we experience being loved. Just as a counselor, the idea of reactive attachment disorder is this process where there's a lot of different attachment disorders, but essentially it's the person that was supposed to be giving you care as a baby either overcompensated or didn't give you enough, and it creates different issues. But regardless, you've not learned to receive love in a healthy way. You've not learned to receive connection in a healthy way, and that affects your attachment to other people. So your partner, friends, whatever, and it can be either really unhealthy in one way where you're overly attached, or really unhealthy in another way where you just can't form attachments. And just from a clinical counseling perspective. Theologically, what we're talking about here is becoming a Christian. We don't know what it means to be loved like that, and we need to be introduced into an environment where people are engaged in and understand. Oh, my joy in my job is to love you here. So that you can experience genuine love of Christ. And learn what it means to give the genuine love of Christ. And then we get to reciprocate that. Boom, boom, boom.
And I'll give you an example of that. This happened actually this last Sunday. So I played, first service, second service. We actually had like basically 4 sets of different songs, that sort of thing. The first service, I was playing and my hand was cramping up while I was playing the drums. To the point where I almost couldn't hold on to my stick anymore because it was just cramping up so bad, and I couldn't stop because there's 200 people in the room. You want to stop. And anyway, there's this guy Doug who's at the church, and literally his job outside of work is he's a chiropractor. And I don't think I was doing it on purpose, but I went up to Doug because we were shooting off confetti cannons, that sort of thing. And I was like, who shot theirs off first or whatever, that sort of thing. And did you?
Yeah, we're just done.
That's all right.
It's all
right. But I was like,
no, it's not recording.
Oh, there you go. But I was like, man, I don't know how I'm gonna get through this second worship set. And he was like, why? And I was like, my hand cramped up during one of the first songs. I couldn't uncramp it. And he was like, come over here and sit down. And I was like, oh, okay. And I mean, Doug's 5'8", 5'5" or
Yeah.
something, and I'm like 6'3", you know.
Short.
And when he's like, "You go sit down," I'm like, "Okay, yeah, I'll do it," you know, like, cause yeah, I love him and respect him, but and then he started working on like my hand, and he works on my arm, and then he like works on my shoulder, and then he like cracked my neck, like, I mean, he went like to town on me,
Yeah.
which I appreciated, because typically, I mean, you would pay good money for
Right.
that. And he was just like, I'm going to do it right now. And I didn't cramp up not once during the second service.
That's cool.
Like,
Right.
at all. And I am like, I'm so thankful that he did that for me. And that was just a way for him to love me. Like,
yeah. Accurately estimated your need.
Yeah. Exactly.
Adequately supplied for your need.
Exactly. Yeah.
No expectation.
No expectation. I mean, he wasn't like, I'll send you a bill.
Right.
Like, you know, like, he just
did the thing that he knew you needed.
Yeah.
And that was it.
That was it.
Because he loves you. Because he knows you. Because you're engaged in connection with him.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And I've gotten chiropractic work done by him before. Like, I mean, as far as like, you know, outside of church, that sort of thing. But like, he just did it right there and like just helped me.
Right.
And it helped an additional 250 people who came in the second
He could have
service.
said,
like,
"Oh, it sucks, man."
Yeah, I'll pray for you.
Yeah. And walked away, right?
Yeah.
But instead, he took the thing that he knows how to do, saw what you needed, did it, and that was it.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
that was it.
Yeah. Exactly.
So,
and that's why I'm gonna.
That's a fantastic story.
And that's why I'm gonna go lift a piano tomorher.
Oh, is it his piano you're moving?
No, different guy. But he.
And then you're gonna need to go see Doug.
Exactly.
The circle of life.
Exactly. But well, very good. Well, yeah, great chapter. You know, next time we'll be going over chapter 5, the greatest command.
Love the Lord your God, right?
It's awesome. You're not going to want to miss out on that one. So that's our show today. We thank you so much for joining us. Make sure you connect with us on Facebook and Instagram. We'd love to hear from you and what you thought about the podcast. Any questions you have for us, we'll be answering questions as we go. But for now, we thank you for listening. Thank you, Bruce.
Yeah, thank you, Justin.
And we'll see you guys next time.
See you later.
Thank you for listening to Fold and Share Theology. You can follow Bruce on multiple social media platforms at bpags2, as well as Justin Mercier on Instagram at justinmercier13. Additionally, you can check us out on Facebook and Instagram at Fold and Share Theology. Until then, keep unfolding God's Word each and every day.